Hello, welcome. I am so glad you're here. We are here for my August reading wrap up. I had a really good month in August. Just had way too many audiobooks. I'm working on that. I'm really working on that for September. But let's go into the breakdown. I read 14 books, which for me is amazing. Absolutely amazing. 3,818 pages. All right. I'm going to apologize in advance. I have a cough drop in my mouth. I'm still recovering from having the flu. About a week ago, I was quite ill. So I read 6 fantasy, 3 romance, 3 literary, 3 historical. 2 were mysteries and 2 were contemporary. All right, quite a little range there. 4 were middle grade. 2 were young adult. There's a question about that, and I'll go into that. And therefore, 8 were adult. 21% was print, so I need to work on that. 7% was digital. Now, that's not something you're going to hear me say very often or ever again. We'll see. We'll see. So 71% was audio. Again, I need to work on that. My average star rating was 3.84, which I think is not bad. Now, 3.84 means something significant to me because if I hear about a book, somebody's talking about books, and I look it up on Goodreads, if it has a 3.8 or less, I'm probably not going to read it unless it just sounds so good. And that's because I know from experience that I'm not going to like a book with that rating. And it's just not for me. So I don't even try. Most of the time. So even though that's low by my standards of what I would want to read, I did actually enjoy most of the books. Not all, but most of the books. Now I'm going to start with middle grade and then go into young adult and then adult. I'll put a timestamp probably up here so that you can just skip ahead if you want. I need some water. Again, apologize for the cough drop. I started off with Wish. Now, Wish is about Charlie. She has been removed from her home to go stay with an aunt and uncle that she barely knows. She's upset because her sister gets to stay in town with friends, and she thinks that's not fair. But her sister is 16, and Charlie is, I want to say she's in 5th grade. And so it's kind of about her sort of accepting her situation, kind of realizing what a family is supposed to be like and what friends are supposed to be like. So she makes a friend, and he's a great character. He's the one who decides that they're going to be friends. And even though she tries to lose him and not hang out with him, she can't help but become friends with him. It's very sweet, very endearing. It has all the feels. Now, I'm not sure where I got this information, but I think a book 2 is coming out. So I gave it 4 stars. I read The Wild Robot Protects, and that's book 3 in the Wild Robot trilogy. And I read School of Fear, Final Exam, which is also book 3 in the School of Fear trilogy. And both of those I talk about in my trilogies video. The Tale of Despero being the story of a mouse, a princess, some soup, and a spool of thread. Now, you may or may not have seen the movie. The movie is adorable. When I first saw the movie, I didn't even know there was a book. When I saw the book, I bought it. I've had it on my shelf for years, just years. It is a Newbery winner, I believe. And so I am trying to read a Newbery each month. There is a reason why this book was turned into a movie. It is really good. It is about a mouse who doesn't want to scurry around like other mice. He wants to read books, and he's fallen in love with the princess. At one point, he needs to rescue her. And it is just super cute. If you've seen the movie, I do recommend the book. They're very similar. I have not been able to decide which one I like best. They both have their plus and minuses. I gave Tale of Despero a 3.75. Turning 15 on the road to freedom, my story of the 1965 Selma Voting Rights March. I bought this at the middle school book fair, and I've been wanting to read this forever. Oh, yeah, I didn't mention one nonfiction. This is nonfiction. It's Linda Blackman Lowry's story of when she was in high school and how she went on marches for voting rights in Selma. And it says, by the time I was 15 years old, I had been in jail 9 times. 9 times. I did not know that the high school kids were marching. The adults couldn't march because then they would lose their job and then they would be listed and not be able to get another job. They could lose their housing, not be able to get another house. So the high school kids were marching, and I never knew that. They would leave the back door of the school unlocked. They all went to school, and they would leave the back door unlocked, and the kids who were going to go march would go march, and sometimes they'd come back at lunchtime, and another set of kids would go and march in the afternoons. And on test days, the smart kids would take the tests for all the kids who were marching. And I thought that was fascinating. There was one time when she was in jail, and they would put all the girls in one jail cell and all the boys in another. But the jail cells were meant for 2 people, and there would be like 20 girls in the jail cell. So they were all crowded, no room for anything, no privacy, and they could be in there for days. One time they were moved from the jail cell to like a prison to like another location, and she was gone. Nobody knew where she was for 6 days. And I find that just terrifying. I really liked this. I learned something new, and that's what I wanted. I gave it 4 stars. The other book that, according to Storygraph, is a young adult is The Otherwhere Post. And I had that book from the library. I had to return it. I got it again. I had wanted to read it ever since I heard about it. The reason I think they call it a young adult is because our main character is pretending to be a 19-year-old. She's not. She's actually, I want to say, almost mid-20s. So she's too old to be a young adult. But anyway, that's not what's important. So, what is it about? In this world, there are 3 versions of the world, I guess. There's doors that you can go from your town to another version of your town, and then you can take a door to go to another version of your town and take a door to come back, or just one or whatever. Anyway, but something really bad had happened in the past. One of the towns was destroyed, and the doors between the worlds is now closed. The only way to communicate with any family that might have been stuck in the now only one other world is through the mail. Somehow the letter carriers have a special magic that can carry them and the letters to the other world. Nobody else can do it. So our main character, she gets a letter that's been lost in the mail. Ever since the big catastrophe, it took some time for them to figure out how to get the mail. And so this letter is, I think, something like 6 years old. And it says, your father is innocent. Meet me at such and such place. Well, that such and such place is in the other world, and she can't get there. She has decided to become an otherwhere mail carrier. And you have to have gone to school and passed an exam, but she kind of sneaks her way in. I just really enjoyed this. I thought it was a nice, cozy fantasy. There's a little bit of romance, a little bit of intrigue, mystery, and it was fun. I gave it 4 stars. That's one that I might bump up a little. I'm not entirely sure yet. So that one is young adult. Now adult. The names. I read the names. The cover said to read it during the summertime with the flowers in the field and all that. So I had to read it during the summertime. I was very intrigued by the mechanics of it. How do you do this? So what is it about? Let's go into that first. There's a woman, and she's just had a baby boy. She has a 6-year-old, I think a 6-year-old daughter. She needs to go register his birth. Now, she's in an abusive marriage, and her husband's name is Gordon, and he wants the son to be named Gordon because every boy in like the last umpteen generations has been named Gordon. She doesn't want to name him Gordon. She wants to name him Julian, but the 6-year-old wants to name him Bear. And so I think it starts in something like late 80s, early 90s. And we see what each decision happened, what each name she picks. So if she names him Bear, we see her go home and have to deal with the husband. We see what happens if she names him Julian, and we see what happens if she names him Gordon. And then there's a time jump, and he's now, I think it's 7 years that it jumps. And now what is he like as a little boy named Bear, Julian, and Gordon? And how everything, and it was a great way of doing it so you could see the changes, because I wanted to know how is she going to justify it being such a huge difference between this name and this name when he's like 35 years old. She does it. It was very effective. I thought it was very well done. I really liked the 3 different names and then a time jump, the 3 different names. So I liked the structure of it. I gave this a 3.75. The question is why? And I think because even though I liked the story, I liked the, like I said, the structure of it, I just didn't really care all that much about the different characters. I did listen to it. I think that was a good choice. Again, I would recommend it to somebody if it's the right book for them, but just wasn't quite there for me. I read Accomplice to the Villain. I love Assistant to the Villain series. Accomplice to the Villain was fun. It was just fun. It just kind of continues on. I can't tell you anything about it, but it continues on. Now, I would definitely say it's the weakest of the 3. There are elements about the 3rd one that I really liked. I'm not going to say anything, but it is also not a trilogy. So I do talk about it in my trilogies video, but it is not a trilogy. 10,000 Stitches is book 2 in the Regency Fairy Tale trilogy, and Long Shadow is book 3. And I did listen to both of those, and I give my review of those in the trilogies video. Now, a side note, this puzzle is just absolutely gorgeous. I'll show a picture of it done. And I did this, well, actually this puzzle took a very long time. My daughter and I started it, but then she moved off to college. And so it kind of sat there for a little while because I didn't want to do a puzzle without her. But while I was listening to 10,000 Stitches and Long Shadow, I finished up this puzzle. It is just a beautiful puzzle that was very, very difficult to do. I did really enjoy it. It was a really good puzzle. I read Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead. That was an experience. I like quirky, and I liked the idea of an atheist lesbian working for the Catholic Church. That just tickled a funny bone with me. That part of the book really worked. What was hard was she's not a happy person. She is definitely depressed. She struggles with anxiety. We are in her head quite a bit. So it's a very quick book. I did enjoy it. I gave it a 3.75. I think it was really just the depression part that's just not for me. The River Has Roots. I don't even know how to explain that one. It is a fantasy. It is very much I would say a love letter to sisters. And I really appreciate it. I do have a sister and she is too far away. This is very much not a book for me. So I went to Goodreads and see what people were saying. And they said things like ethereal, whimsical, dreamlike. Sure, all of those. It very much is all of those. I do highly recommend that if you're interested in the book, that you do the audiobook, because the audiobook was very well done. It has the singing that they do is kind of plays in the background. You can hear the water. I gave it a 3. It is beautifully written, but it is so very much not for me. I did DNF one book. Every time I go on vacation, somebody dies. I think part of the problem was when I was reading that, it was kind of a combo of reading, physically reading and listening to it, that the part of the problem was that our main character talks to us as the reader, and that's just something I don't like. It's a personal thing. The other problem was somehow I looked it up on Goodreads and I saw that it had a really low rating. Not a really low. I should not say it has a low rating. I think it was a 3.7 something. And as I said already, that sort of passed my cutoff. And so it was kind of annoying me because she keeps talking to us, the reader, and I really was not very far into it, but I didn't care about any of the characters, so I just decided to quit. I might go back to it someday. We'll see. Okay, my digital book. I have to give you a little background story. Once upon a time at the library bookshelves for sale, I found these two books. Mortal Arts and A Grave Matter. And I have very fond memories of this book getting ruined on a camping trip at Lake Tahoe. But anyway, these are books 2 and 3. And so I got the first book on audio. I was very curious and I loved it. These are the Lady Darby mysteries. Lady Darby in the first book is trying to ride out a scandal at her sister. It takes place in 1830s, mostly Scotland. And Lady Darby is trying to ride out a scandal at her sister's estate. They are currently having a house party and somebody dies. And of course they think it's Lady Darby who did it because she just has this reputation. There happens to be an investigator there. His name is Sebastian Gage, and he wants to keep his eye on her, so he has her investigate with him. I am now reading the 13th book in the series. But there was one book that is 4.5. Now, I don't normally like the point whatevers in a series, but because I love this series so much, I needed to read it. I wanted to read it, but it was only available on Kindle. And I don't have Kindle. I don't have any kind of digital thing. So a couple weeks ago, I saw that my library had just purchased a Lady Darby book. It was one I'd already read, but it got me looking around on the different sources like Libby. And they had digital copy of A Pressing Engagement. And so I obviously got it. So I read the book on my phone, which was really annoying and took me way too long for, I think, the 93 pages that it is. But I did really like it. I gave it a 4.25. I can't tell you anything about it, but I do recommend, if you like historical mystery, I really love this series. And like I said, I'm currently reading book 13. And then I read The Road to Tender Hearts. Where to even start with this? Okay, first off, there's PJ. He is 63 and is an alcoholic. And he does not have a great relationship with his daughter, who is about 23 or so. And she is goth and trying to live on her own and not doing a great job of it. And he is sort of enabled by his ex-wife, who lives with her soon-to-be husband. They feed him, buy him his groceries and all that sort of thing. PJ inherits 2 kids. They're both in 4th grade. They all decide to go on a road trip together, which to me was what this cover just says. It just looks like a hot August day on a road trip, which was my life when I was a kid. The road trip leads to a lot of adventures, like the reason that they're on the road trip and the adventures that they have while they're on the road trip. The cat is the important character here. I honestly love the cat. The cat, you do not want this cat to come up to you because this cat can predict who's going to die. And if the cat nestles with somebody and just rubs on them and just loves them, then that person ends up dead. So you see that happening sprinkled throughout the book, and it is oddly funny. I do recommend this. This is not something I would have thought that I would have liked that much, but I gave it a 4. I'm still toying with moving it up or down, so I think I'm gonna leave it on 4. But yes, I really enjoyed that. I would love to know if you have read any of the Lady Darby books. I absolutely recommend them. But the audiobooks are phenomenal. Thank you for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.